It was to the sleepy bureaucratic charm of the United Nations Centre in Geneva that representatives from the 30 nations and organizations most deeply concerned about Serbia's continuing aggression came. US Secretary of State Lawrence Eagleburger swept in to press further what is effectively a joint US-French determination to secure enforcement of the UN no-fly zone over Bosnia, with a new UN resolution by early next week for military air action, which is not in itself the same as military intervention. Before a meeting with EC and UN co-chairman Lord Owen and Cyrus Vance, Mr. Eagleburger confirmed the evidence being amassed on Serbian war criminals, possibly at the highest levels in Belgrade.
If there's an opportunity today or sometime this week, we'll be naming some names.
But with the international outrage at Serbia building by the hour, later this week became this afternoon. Mr. Eagleburger delivering a savage indictment of Serbia, its leadership and their allegedly criminal officers and foot soldiers, which effectively ended the diplomatic niceties of dealing with Belgrade. When the detail emerged, it took every country here by surprise. The Americans had warned no one of their revelations to come, the names and charges they were about to produce, mainly Serbian, but with some Croatian fighters and warlords charged as well.
Obviously, I can't bring him to trial. I'm not even sure we should. What I am sure is he needs to answer for what's been done in his name. But the point is not whether we can bring him to trial at this point. Fundamentally, the point is to tell those who have committed these acts that they can run, but they can't hide, point one. And secondly, to warn those who may be thinking about doing things of that sort that they would be well advised to think twice before they commit the same kinds of crimes that we're charging others with. So in part this is, I hope, deterrence. In part it is to tell those who have committed these crimes that someplace, sometime, somehow, they're going to have to answer for what they've done.
There is a political determination to significantly crank up pressure on Serbia, especially now from Islamic nations. But the more the politicians, officials and the UN military commanders under General Morillon chew over the detail and the ramifications of intensified action like enforcing the no-fly zone, the greater the doubts and the fears because of the kind of counter-threats being made by the Bosnian Serbs.
Since we don't have any combat aircrafts, any attack on our medical evacuation flights, which are going to be checked to the Amphor, would be act of aggression on Serbian people. And we can't envisage how desperate people would react.
Such warnings are seen by the British as good reasons to intensify sanctions rather than enforce the no-fly zone, if necessary severing all Serbia's links to the outside world.
The importance of sanctions becomes clearer and clearer. Just at the time when they were beginning to have an effect, that effect was weakened. I think we have to examine why and put in place measures which make sure that they strengthen again.
With precise detail laid out before them, the foreign ministers and officials heard the UN commanders confirm that essentially Serbia has now seized 70% of Bosnia, an amount of territory which could now be considered a de facto Greater Serbia. With the EC UN co-chairman talking of their hopes to persuade military commanders to withdraw from their military front lines, the gathering also heard the latest intelligence reports, which confirm that contrary to suspicions, the Serbs are no longer flying combat missions in the no-fly zone, and all unauthorized movements are civilian or for medical evacuation or for a modest amount of militarily insignificant supply operations. As for pressure from the Islamic world for the UN to lift the arms embargo and allow arms to flow freely into Bosnia, with Russia looking on warily, that was rejected as a measure likely to lead at even greater speed to the Balkan Armageddon so many here now fear.
Anybody who writes up the story that the Muslims have lost the war, I think, are making a great mistake. It is clear the Islamic community worldwide is going to support them with money, which these days enables you to buy arms regardless of any embargo.
Military intervention as such is not on the agenda, but there is a sense now that the Serbian leadership must be forced to face the kind of firm Western response which has so far been avoided. Nick Gowing, Channel 4 News.